Coming to you weekly from the OnPay recording studio, this is the Cloud Accounting Podcast.
Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
And
Blake, I've got a virtual background on here.
That's right, because you are in Seaside, Florida. David, what are you doing out in the panhandle of Florida?
I am here for the accounting salon. I was unable to attend last year, and so I made the trek this year to Accounting Salon. And just what Accounting Salon is, it was an experiment. This is the fifth year in a row now, the fifth event that we've done, and it's Amanda Aguilar and myself. We met at a conference, and kind of this idea of like, where do people go that teach at the conferences go to learn things from each other? And there's nothing existed. And we kind of just, as an experiment, I was like, well, I know some QuickBooks people. And she said, I know some Xero people. And they're all, they all have cash practices. And we brought them to New Orleans on year one. There's about 18 people. And it was basically in Amanda's backyard, right? Like we had in her pool house, we all stood around and had a conference to some extent.
Yeah.
And now basically it's grown to accounting.
Basically, you just made your own conference.
We made our own conference, but we talked about this today. Like Amanda and I didn't set out a lot of conferences are like how to be like me, right? That's a conference. Like, but it's not. We don't do any talking. Like I run around and hand the microphone to all the other members. But there's about 60 members in Accounting Salon, and about 40 come to the live event every year. I know you're a member. You weren't able to come this year because you're going to Italy tomorrow. That's why we're recording on Tuesday. But it's about just people teaching each other, right? And it's just an open and honest group. And I wish we could have 1,000 people in it, but it just doesn't work, right? You can't have that high level engagement with more than 40. So we even cap for members how many can attend the live event, because after 40, it just becomes chaos. Too much talking, too much side conversations, no productivity. So that's what I'm doing in Seaside, Florida. Did you know that this is where they filmed The Truman Show? So if you've seen that movie, The Truman Show, that is the bubble I'm living in right now.
I did, and I wish I could be there. I've always wanted to see that place, so maybe next year. But we got
and it's
lots
like
of
The
news
Truman Show because we're streaming. Like we're streaming, right? It's like people are watching me in The Truman Show.
Except on The Truman Show, Seaside, Florida had a much better internet connection because they were streaming in high definition all over the planet in a bubble. And I don't understand how is it that your connection is so bad? I feel like, this is a story we've talked about on the show, that like broadband in the United States is like not where it needs to be for us to be competitive globally, because like you're barely moving for me.
This could be the Airbnb that I'm in. It has I have a little wireless adapter, but it's one of those ones where it plugs into the wall, into the power line is going through the power line to wherever the rest of the internet's being hosted. I don't know. It's
anyway.
I think it's Beach Town internet, right?
That's why.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the news. We got a lot to talk about because we spent all of last episode demoing AI inside of Practice Management Solutions, and there's so much going on still with AI. Accounting Today ran the CPA exam through ChatGPT and said it failed miserably. I saw a story about check fraud on the rise in the Wall Street Journal, which I couldn't believe. I'm trying to reconcile these two things. Here we are, cloud accounting, AI, and check fraud is still a thing. There's been a TurboTax settlement. There's a story in Accounting Today about how audit firms remove partners who fault clients' internal controls. The 3 failed U.S. banks all had KPMG in common. Like, I don't even know where to begin. Should we start with this CPA exam thing, David? I think that's
yeah. Let's talk AI, because I think that's the most. That was the most story I made the most notes on this week as well. I have lots of questions, I guess, on that.
Okay. So, and welcome to our live stream viewers, Michael and Brian. Great to see you both. Brian says, "Ciao. Why can't Blake film from Italy?" I'm a little reluctant to do it, like because of the internet thing, and so I decided let's do it now before I leave. I'm going to Italy for a couple of weeks for ExpensiCon. I'll see you there, David. I'm going a bit in advance to see the sites. I've never been, so I'm excited. Hello, Heather. Welcome into the stream.
So logistics speaking, When
Yeah.
we're both in Italy next week and we're going to record together, are we going to try to stream us recording together at the same time?
I mean,
In the same,
might as well. We'll give it a shot. We'll see if the resort can
it can't be any
can
worse
handle
than
it.
this. Apparently, I don't know how it's looking.
We'll see. Well,
How
I mean,
rough it
you're
is.
still on the stream. You haven't been disconnected yet, so we'll see. Hello, Heather. Welcome. Okay, so Accounting Today had ChatGPT take the CPA exam, and it failed. David, takeaways.
Well, they didn't just say it failed. It failed utterly in all 4 sections.
Yes. It got 39% on reg, audit 46, FAR 35, and BEC 48. It did not pass any part of the CPA exam. But there's a catch to this. Did you see what they did that might invalidate these results very soon, David?
So to rewind, so they did an experiment, right? And they did this at their the home office of it's Arzient, and that's their parent company of Accounting Today. And they worked with Surgeon CPA Review, the publisher. So they basically gave it a practice test. And if you scroll down the bottom of the article, they kind of talk a little bit more about how they did it. And it looks like they just gave it they didn't train it. And maybe that's my takeaway, right? They said they primed it with this question, with this prompt. ChatGPT, you are going to take on the role of a student who's taking the CPA exam today. Repeat this information back to me. And then they would paste in an exam question and get an answer, an exam question and get an answer. But nowhere did it say like, oh, we gave it the textbooks of an accounting graduate's courses or, any education, right? And so that was the part I was confused on, right? Is like, well, of course, like if you don't give it training, how's it going to have the answers? And so that's my confusion over this. Or not confusion, it's just like, it's very clickbaity, but if you read it, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
So my problem with the methodology is right up at the top. They used GPT-3 instead of 4. It says we use 2 laptops, each running a separate ChatGPT 3.5 Pro account, because using GPT-4 would have made the experiment impractical due to metering. Currently, even if you pay for GPT-4, you can only do 20 or 25 questions or prompts per. I don't know what it is, but I got limited earlier today.
Eventually, it tells you. Yeah, it usually tells you to stop, right? Usually,
yeah, it does. So here's the thing. You can't do this experiment on 3 and then say that GPT failed, because the bar exam, GPT also failed at that with version 3, but then version 4 passed it with huge marks. And I think anybody who's used GPT knows that there's a huge difference between version 3 and version 4. It was an order of magnitude difference in quality, and that's what got me really into ChatGPT, was the version 4 improvement. And so this morning, I was so frustrated with this, I decided to, as quickly as possible, try and replicate at least some of this. So I opened up GPT-4, ChatGPT version 4, and I went to the AICPA CPA practice exam that you can find online, and I just started pasting the multiple choice questions into ChatGPT. And I gave it a similar prompt. I said, you are taking the CPA exam. That's your job. I'm going to give you exam questions. You pick the best answer. So I gave it 10 multiple choice questions from the audit practice exam. It got 10 out of 10 right. 10 out of 10. Now, there are also exercises in the audit exam, right, which I couldn't get it to do because I can't paste in a spreadsheet with the formatting. So I was only able to give it multiple choice questions, but it aced them, 10 out of 10. The first 2 Quizlets. The Quizlets are 5 questions each, so 10 questions. Then I gave it the FAR, the financial accounting questions, okay? It got 7 out of the 10 correct. And the ones that it missed all had to do with math, calculations, calculating some value. And we know that AI, right now, ChatGPT, can't do calculations accurately because it's not hooked up to a calculator. It's a language model. So if it does calculations properly, that's just dumb luck, right? So like, I mean, this is completely misleading, and
And
I'm
that's, I
willing
think,
to,
my big takeaway.
yeah.
I think it's a bad story because, like, if as somebody who's now fiddling with ChatGPT, like I'm going to say I'm a prompt expert and have some title, but like I fiddle with it enough to get a good vibe here of what's going on. And I think if somebody has not used it yet or doesn't understand it, they're just going to see this headline. And if you're an accountant, you might get a false sense of confidence, right?
Exactly.
Like, just that makes sense. And then I look at this, another, like, two other aspects is I would like to see what happens with students who are allowed to use ChatGPT when they take the exam, because that's going to be your real world. It's going to kind of be your assistant. It's like student plus ChatGPT. What were their scores together? Working as a team would be interesting. And then the other piece of this, which is really Surgeon CPA needs a better marketing department and PR department, because I would have done it like this. It failed miserably. Then we told it to study using our study materials, and now look, now it passes. And that they blew an opportunity to market Surgeon CPA review.
And the reason you mentioned Surgeon is because they did this experiment with Accounting Today together. I don't know if we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, it used their practice test or whatever.
They used their practice test, right? So,
yeah,
GPT is coming for audit. I am convinced that most staff level audit work will be automated by generative AI. I mean, OpenAI's own research paper said that auditing and accounting is 100% exposed to automation through their technology. And that means that at least 50% of the tasks in that job or profession can be automated. So at least 50% of the current tasks that accountants and auditors do can be automated with generative AI, which is not a bad thing. It's a great thing. But I think a lot of those tasks are at the entry level. So then that creates all the questions about what are those students going to do if they're still being prepared in an old way, an education system that hasn't changed, still doing stuff on paper.
Learn,
I mean,
yeah.
So
develop new
anyway,
skills.
So don't pay attention to these experiments. If they're not using GPT-4, it is not going to be accurate. And we got 100% with GPT-4, ChatGPT-4 on the audit, on 10 audit questions. So I got another story in this vein, David.
Before we leave this, there was a quote in this article, and because I'm somebody who's never taken the CPA exam, and I was a little confused. So this is Wes Bricker. He's the vice chair and co-leader of Trust Solutions at PwC. And he said, there's more to accounting than just having a lot of accounting knowledge. There's also the matter of professional judgment, skepticism, and experience, which ChatGPT lacks. I'm wondering, like, does a college student have professional judgment, skepticism, and experience out of college? And then when they're taking the exam, do you get tested on those three things? So I can't reconcile, like, who cares if ChatGPT doesn't have it? Because the test, is it testing for that?
I mean, it tests knowledge of what those terms mean, but you can't gain professional skepticism from a textbook, I don't think. You have to learn it on the job, right? Which is why I don't think that, the audit partners and the managers and directors who are supposedly using professional skepticism are not going to get automated. But, all the rote work,
Yeah, and this article, everybody should go read this article. Yeah. Because it has a lot of quotes from accounting professors and senior partners and they're almost all telling themselves, of course, ChatGPT can't do our jobs. And I think they may not be right. I don't know.
So I got a follow-up here. Yeah. We were talking about the potential for AI fraud on the podcast. And the #1 tech reporter at the Wall Street Journal has just validated our concerns. Joanna Stern wrote a piece at the end of April titled, I cloned myself with AI. She fooled my bank and my family. So Joanna Stearns does great work on tech reporting. She's always testing the new iPhones, all the new gadgets for the Wall Street Journal, does these awesome videos that I love watching. And she's testing out in this article this service called Synthesia. Have you heard of Synthesia, David?
No.
So this is it's an AI that creates a voice and image, and then puts, you type the words, and the avatar speaks. It's an avatar.
So I could upload a still image of you and a couple samples of your voice, and then give it text, and it'll move your jaw.
Exactly. And
Okay.
and I've seen some of these in action, and they look a little stiff, but like they're getting better and better and better. And you can see them totally being used for like corporate training videos, that sort of thing, right? The beauty is you don't have to hire a professional actor and pay them every time you change your script. You just update the avatar with whatever new text you need to write. So she had, she's also been testing out an AI voice clone developed by 11 Labs, an AI speech software developer. She gathered 90 minutes of her voice from previous videos she's done, uploaded the files to the tool, and then under 2 minutes, it cloned her voice. So she can type in any text, click generate, and then within seconds, her voice says it aloud. Now, I'm going to play some of these clips for you, David, and I want you to close your eyes.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me what you think is is if this is a real voice or not.
Hey, Dad, what are the last 4 digits of your social security number?
Pretty hard to tell, right?
You want to answer right now?
That's
I would not know. That's just a small, quick audio clip.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to play it again for you.
Hey, Dad, what are the last 4 digits of your social security number?
That was an AI voice clone created by 11 Labs. Here's another one.
Hey, Dad, what are the last 4 digits of your social security number?
That was Synthesia. This is Joanna Stern's real voice.
Hey, Dad, what are the last 4 digits of your social security number?
Yeah.
So you can see, right? You can hear the difference.
But it's a lot harder to hear the difference when it's these short questions like this, though, Blake. Like if it was a 3-sentence paragraph, there's no doubt I would have nailed it. But when they're short, 7-word sentences, it's not long enough for you to pick up the weird speech patterns, right?
Yeah. So here's the scary part. She called up Chase's credit card system, the voice biometric system, and she fooled it using the synthetic voice. So she dialed up customer service. At the biometric step, when the automated system asked for her name and address, AI Joanna responded. Hearing the bot's voice, the system recognized it as her and immediately connected to a representative. And then, right? It beat the biometrics.
I'm shocked because I think somebody predicted this was going to start happening. I think I talked about it on the show just high level 5 weeks ago. I am shocked that the banks have not shut down this voice recognition stuff yet.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a huge risk for the banks and it's not so much the banks are going to falter because of it, but they're going to have a lot of clients that get fleeced because of this.
Yeah. They gotta stop it right now, immediately. And I don't know if there's a way to like disable this voice authentication on your own account. I would recommend doing it because anyone can take recordings of you. If there are recordings out there, they could clone me, they could clone you. Anybody who's on social media or has ever done a podcast before, somebody can find your voice.
It's a good thing we're podcasters and don't have any money. Nothing to worry about. I have more AI news about Intuit.
Oh yeah, before we go to that, we've got some listener feedback here in real time. Heather said she fooled the system. That's an AI talking to an AI, right? That's exactly it. So right now, the AI can fool the AI. How long before it can fool a human? And how long before we have AIs that are looking for other AIs? Michael said, well, this is frightening.
Yeah, this is frightening.
Heather also said, I think it's the inflection that differs. The first was definitely fake. The second was closer. Yeah. But inflection, I think, is something they're going to figure out. That's just a matter of training the model, comparing, having the model train itself. It's not that far off.
To have more randomness in it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. To stumble over words, to mumble. All right. What's your TurboTax story, David?
So it's not even TurboTax. So this is an article from TechCrunch, and the title of the article is bad. It just says Intuit Shift. So on the surface, you might even read the article. Like, what do you care about Intuit Shift? But it's basically an article about Intuit's AI journey. And we've talked about this on the show, like ChatGPT, AI, this is all great, but unless you have it tied to like serious data, how does it really become useful? So Intuit already has 700 AI related patents that they've been working on the last half a dozen years or so. And now they're applying all that against, they have 730 million customer interactions and 58 billion machine learning predictions daily from the last 5 years. So Intuit's probably pretty close to unleashing this, right? They have the data, they have the patents, they have the technology stack. And it was talking about how in 2022, Intuit laid off 700 employees, and then they rehired, or basically hired 700 new people with AI skills. And that's the same thing Brad Smith kind of did when they Intuit moved from desktop to cloud. About 5 years in a row, they'd lay off 700 people, rehire 700 new people with a different skill set, right? And it really helped Intuit move from a desktop company to a cloud company. It kind of sounds like this is happening again.
So you're predicting that we're going to see some big breakthroughs from Intuit. We haven't seen any yet, though, that use generative AI.
No, but I think we're going to see something
coming
soon. And
because of these jobs.
They do intend to have it be, it is to augment the platform, to augment accountants and bookkeepers and financial experts. It's not to replace anybody. They go on to talk about that. And then they were talking about how sometimes it's not even in the products themselves, but you know how TurboTax Live and QuickBooks Live, you can do video chats with them. So they're using AI in that service. So if we were on a video chat, it'll record our audio and make notes, and then at the end summarize the notes with some bullets of here's what David the accountant and Blake the client talked about on a QuickBooks Live service. And that's something I was thinking, well, people could do that themselves with their clients. There's services that plug into Zoom, I think, like Otter.ai, and so every time you meet with your client, it'll pump out a summary of that Zoom call. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if Teams is probably going to do this already or very soon. So there are ways for you as a firm can still compete with somebody like Intuit, because these tools are becoming more and more off the shelf. Right?
Marissa said, interesting. So QB will be smarter, right? QB needs to be smarter. It already screws up nearly all categorization in bank feeds. Yeah, why can't they get that right, David?
It's getting better, but it doesn't. Yeah, I don't want to go there. It's just maddening enough.
Michael said,
maddening enough.
I heard recently that some of the thought leaders in AI say there's a 10 to 20% chance AI will destroy humanity as we know it. A 1 in 5 chance. Yeah, that is terrifying. And as somebody who grew up on sci-fi as a significant portion of my reading material, and I read a lot. I mean, I read a lot about the dystopian futures created by AIs, and I don't know. There's not much we can do about it, though, right? So I just am not.
But it's not going to do
thinking about it.
I don't think it's going to kill us out of spite. It's going to kill us because it's going to make a really stupid mistake. That's my fear. And like I had it create all these calendar appointments for my trips, and one of my appointments, the address was not to the airport. It just mapped me to someplace else. Like so, at some level, it's not smart enough to. If you're putting my flight information in my calendar, it probably is going to be an airplane flight at an airport, ChatGPT, and it didn't put an airport in for me to go to. It just puts.
Did you ever see that? So. Did you ever see that movie, Dr. Strangelove, David?
Dr. Strangelove.
Classic film.
That's not a Marvel movie. That's like a different one. Classic.
No, this is old black and white film.
Late 70s? Or even
I don't
older.
Even remember. Okay. Oh, it's old. It's a Kubrick film, Stanley Kubrick, I believe. And it's so bizarre and totally relevant. I recommend everyone go look up Dr. Strangelove. It's basically about the creation of an autonomous weapon that destroys the planet. So that's my concern, is AI attached to weapons operating autonomously. And I think this is already starting to happen. But anyway, I don't know. I want to stay positive with this, David, right? There's a potential for it to destroy humanity, but it's only a 10 to 20% chance, right? We've got a good 80 to 90% chance that it frees us from all work and we can all just, log on to our computers and tap a few buttons and it does everything for us, right? So let's focus on that.
I didn't see any other AI stuff this week. Did you?
I'm sure there was, but I want to get to this story that I teased on LinkedIn about firms that remove audit partners who fault clients' internal controls. You see this one, David? I know you don't really pay attention to the audit the way I do.
So the title's interesting. So
Yeah,
like you like
title
to
got
say
my
all the time,
attention.
explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So explain this, what this means.
What I really should do is copy paste this into ChatGPT and say explain it like I'm 5, which I highly recommend trying. Do that for like anything, and it's amazing how good
But
it
then
is.
nobody
at
will
that.
need to listen to our show, Blake. People will just do that and eliminate us. So
Well, no, because copy paste is a lot of work, and this way you can just queue up the
true.
podcast episode and hit play while you mow the lawn. So this was a study released in March that found that firms are far more likely to remove a partner from a continuing engagement when the partner has issued an adverse internal control opinion for any clients in the previous year. This is in Accounting Today. I'm reading from the article here. The researchers found that individual partners who issue negative opinions about a client's internal controls experience unfavorable changes in their client portfolios in the form of lower fees and less prestigious client assignments. The negative consequences for partners were most dire when their adverse opinions were issued about the firm's more important clients. So it hurts their careers.
if you do a better job, if you do your job,
if you do your job as an auditor and you fault clients' internal controls, you create a problem for the firm and you get punished for it. I mean, we've all known this is true, and now the researchers have proven it. They've demonstrated this to be true. And it makes you wonder, like, how can the current state of audit continue when it's like this obvious that auditors are not independent of their clients? Like, why would this happen? What's the reason for this?
Are you asking me the reason?
This is sort of that was a hypothetical question, I guess. I mean,
well, my guess is because they have a consulting contract over here, right? And they don't want to piss off the client.
I guess.
It's a paying client.
So what they found too is, like, specifically that when engagement partners issue adverse internal control opinions to any of their clients, they're more likely to be reassigned after the opinions are issued. And especially with clients for whom they are doing Sarbanes-Oxley 404B internal control audits. So negative consequences. So go ahead.
A little bit delayed. So I'm trying to understand, like what's the motivation of doing the audit correctly at all? Your career gets screwed up if you don't report stuff you find. Nobody wants to report it because it could impact your consulting engagements. Like why do the audits at all at this point, like in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I mean, I think this is the problem why a lot of people leave audit, right? Is because if you want to do a good job, you get punished for doing a good job. And you find that out at the staff level, the manager level. Like the more you dig, the more you find, the more you get reassigned. Because what does the firm ultimately want? How does it make money? By issuing opinions. They don't want to have to issue an adverse opinion. They don't want to lose the client. They don't want to cause problems for the client. It creates more work for the firm and creates problems for the client. It's like this is the fundamental conflict of interest that no amount of ethics training can fix. It's the system. So then I see articles like PCAOB turns up the heat on auditors.
I had that one open. That's a
Yeah,
little bit more on the same page.
So during a virtual keynote session Thursday at Baruch College, I guess they were doing a financial reporting conference in New York, Erica Williams, who is the chair of the PCAOB, pointed to growing trends and significant audit deficiencies highlighted in Part 1.A of the PCAOB inspection reports. Quote, "We found that audits with Part 1A deficiencies increased 5% in our 2021 inspections to 34% compared to 29% in the 2020 inspections. And that means that a third of the audits we inspected had deficiencies of such significance that PCAOB staff believe that audit firms fail to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence to support their opinions on public companies' financial statements or internal controls over financial reporting. A third of all audits. Oh, did you hear that? My smart speaker just went nuts. I guess Siri got so worked up by this story about audit that she had to say something, which has never happened before. Now she's playing soothing classical music. I mean, a third of all
So,
audits.
I mean, loosely going by this math, ChatGPT could audit just good enough to get these same results in its current form. Even though
that's my
it
theory.
can't pass the exam.
Yeah. So, you wonder why we have trouble. Why do we have trouble recruiting and retaining? Like, let's just say this. Why do we have trouble getting students to want to become accounting majors and then stick around and go into public accounting? I mean, a third of the audits that they're working on are so deficient that investors should not be relying on the financial statements. Like, they shouldn't be relying on the audit opinion that the financial statements are accurate. Like, that's a huge failure rate, right? I mean, would you even pass the CPA exam with? Go ahead.
You have it's like this generation. Everybody wants to have their work and careers be fulfilling, or what's the word I'm looking for here, Blake?
You want to have meaning in your life, right?
Meaning, right? Everybody wants meaning.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a 9-to-5 job anymore. And so this next generation, they come out, they decide they want to be accountants, they graduate, they get their CPA exam, they work on an audit and realize it means nothing. Like, could you imagine like the psychological blow to all the work you've put in for the last 5-6 years of your life to find out the work you're doing absolutely means nothing?
Yeah. And it's sad to me because, like, that's not accounting broadly. That's just accounting and auditing, I should say. That's just auditing for publicly listed companies, which you do at the Big Four. You're doing these massive audits that have these inspection problems. That's not what we do for small businesses. That's not what the people that you and I talk to every day, the small firm owners, are doing. They are actually helping small businesses survive, thrive. They're getting through tax compliance with them, helping them plan, helping them retire, helping them sell businesses. That's really exciting and amazing and fulfilling. And we talk to those people all the time when we go to conferences and we have guests on the show. And that's not what these young accountants are being exposed to. They're just being ground through the machine of getting these audits out the door that are deficient, or a lot of them are, right? Just doing the bare minimum to pass a PCAOB inspection. And they're not even passing those. So,
and then the problem with the PCAOB we brought up before is a lot of people in the PCAOB either come from the big firms or go take a job at a big firm right afterwards. They're not going to punish their friends for these actions.
Yep. They call that regulatory capture. That's the name of it. Okay, so while we're on this, we might as well just nail them. Nail the Big Four. 3 failed U.S. banks had one thing in common, KPMG. This was a story in Financial Times that I just tweeted a picture of this headline and said KPMG in the hot seat. And that tweet got, I mean, last time I checked, it was like 179,000 impressions. I don't get that much action on Twitter.
Is this your greatest tweet or LinkedIn post ever? Like,
it might be my biggest tweet of all time, which I did not expect. But this was very, very popular, at least popular to like and retweet and share. Yeah, all 3 of the failed banks, the big failed banks recently, Silicon Valley Bank, Signature, and First Republic, were audited by KPMG. I found it really fascinating just how much of the banking industry KPMG audits. There's a chart here in the story. KPMG audits the largest proportion of U.S. listed banks by total assets. Like $6 trillion of assets audited by KPMG. PwC is next at $5 trillion. EY, way lower at 2. And Deloitte has less than $1 trillion in assets that they're auditing for banks. And I think it's 14%. 14% of U.S. banks are audited by KPMG.
So just by seeing this, isn't there like an audit or an accounting ethics guideline as far as like undue risk or introducing undue risk? Is that a concept?
Oh, I mean, there's a risk assessment that has to happen. Like you have to assess the risk of financial statement, misstatement, and like the whole question around,
I can't audit, my brother-in-law. Like if my brother's a CEO of a company, I probably have to disengage myself from that engagement. But like, there's no overall guidance for somebody like KPMG of like, maybe you have too many banks. Maybe too many eggs are in one basket here. Like there's no
I think this
policy
is, I
or
think
principles, guiding principles.
You bring up a good point. It's like this whole too big to fail idea, right? Which happens with banks. We've got, Chase and Bank of America and Wells Fargo, and I think there's one other, and we know they're too big to fail. Like they will be bailed out by the government if something happens, just like in the Great Recession. And we have 4 big auditing firms, but really we don't. We only have 2 when it comes to banks, KPMG and PwC. So like it really is it's a duopoly there. And we all know that, the fewer providers there are, the less quality you get and the higher prices you get. Like this is what our system has created, is a system where, there's not accountability because there's only 2 players. Like who's going to pick up the audits if KPMG gets fired? I guess PwC. Who's going to pick up the audits if PwC gets fired? KPMG, right? Like it just goes back and forth. So I just wanted to share that with our audience. I had no idea that it was that concentrated. And of course, the question now is, like, will KPMG be held accountable for any of this? It all rests with the PCAOB. PCAOB will probably inspect these audits, and they'll look at the work papers, and they'll look at the analysis, and they'll have to decide, did KPMG fail to issue a critical audit matter about this interest rate risk? And I don't know, I guess I feel kind of the same way I feel about the whole case against Trump in New York, where there's a case there, but it's super thin, right? It's like, it's not great. And the way auditing standards have been written, I think KPMG probably is going to be hard to make a case against them that they should have done something because of the way the law is. So the same way as with the Trump organization, what's the actual crime? It's normally a misdemeanor. It's falsifying business records is a misdemeanor, and they're going to try to elevate it to a felony through adding another crime. Like that's kind of it's a stretch, right? You got to add the other crime, make it a felony, convince a jury of this. Same thing with with KPMG and the PCAOB. You got to really like make a strong argument that they should have issued a critical audit matter, and a lot of this is up to subjective judgment. So who's going to question that audit
especially
partner?
Because the accounting rules for banks arguably need to change, and KPMG is just going to work off what the current rules are. They don't have to apply extra judgment, regardless of what that guy said in that article at the beginning of the show about how accountants apply experience and judgment. Like apparently they don't really do that.
Well, we don't. We've protected ourselves by, regulating, by writing the standards such that the auditors are not held accountable. We've protected ourselves. So, people from KPMG do audits of banks, and then they go work at the FASB and PCAOB, and they look out for their buddies. Like, this is natural. But that's created the situation we're in now. And you know who bears the brunt of it? It's these young 20-something auditors who were on these engagements that are like, oh, no, what have I done?
Yeah.
Right? The engagement team is bearing the blame for all of this, but it's really the regulators, who are the accountants too, right? They're to blame for it.
It's 25 years, 30 years, 40 years of history, but you're right. The 22-year-old kid and the team he's on is the one that's going to get the axe for this.
Yeah, and you think that guy's or girl's gonna want to stay in accounting after this? Having been on the audit engagement team, like all these, it's like it's not the place you want to be, right? All your friends are making fun of you, right? Oh, you audit banks, nice job. Or KPMG, nice job. What else you got, David? Should we go into app news?
Before we go into app news, I just saw some interesting numbers. When you think about, as you're offering your services, and are we competing with TurboTax and H&R Block and the tax shops and all of that? And so this is from insiderradio.com, and essentially it's about the ads that were ran for leading up to tax day 2023 by the top 20 brands. And it has both the radio ads and TV ads. If you want to bring it up, I think you have the article. It's very interesting numbers when you start thinking about the scale.
So this is
a little bit more
from Inside Radio, and this is the chart says top 20 brands by total ads leading into tax day 2023.
So for the listeners that can't see this, TurboTax ran 382,000 ads on the television.
Wow.
Do you really think your Google ad spend is going to work? They're like,
that dwarfs Jackson Hewitt. Jackson Hewitt's the next with 145,000 TV ad spots. But they did more radio. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Jackson Hewitt owned radio.
H&R Block, I know, dialed back.
Yeah, they barely did anything.
Ads.
Yeah, 86,000 total across TV and radio, but mostly TV. QuickBooks by comparison had what, 67,000?
Yeah.
I wonder what they spent on that.
So just
well, hey, you brought up TurboTax.
Does it have money in this or not?
Intuit, right?
Yeah, no, there was no money in the article.
Wasn't there just like a big settlement for TurboTax? Am I going to get some money? Because I did use TurboTax at one point.
I don't know how the settlement is, but people are getting checks because of the whole free, right?
The free thing. So TurboTax customers to receive checks for $141 million in a settlement. This is on AP. This came out last week. In a settlement last year, TurboTax's owner Intuit Inc. was ordered to pay $141 million to some 4.4 million people across the country. Those impacted were low-income consumers eligible for free federally supported tax services, but paid TurboTax to file their federal returns across the 2016, 17, and 18 tax years due to, quote, predatory and deceptive marketing, unquote, New York Attorney General Letitia James said. Oh, yeah, I remember this one. So the checks are going out. How much are they getting? $29 to $85. All right.
Oh, that's like the price of TurboTax and TurboTax Live. So you can use it for your next year's return.
Do you think they'll send it out as like a free coupon for your next year of TurboTax?
No, I think they go out as real checks because lawyers don't want a percentage of coupons.
I'm joking.
They go out as real checks.
They go out as real checks.
Did you say we had a lot of listener mail this week?
Yeah, we did. Shall I pull up some of that? Let me get over to the listener mail. So this is from Jason Brown. Jason Brown said, "You guys constantly harp on the 120/150 hour issue, and sure, there are issues with the system as it stands. However, I don't think the solution to the accountant shortage is to devalue the CPA license. How about paying more? I work in private industry, and the jobs I see when I apply are generally offering atrocious pay and no remote options. On the few occasions I do find a role that meets my requirements, there are so many applicants that I don't even get an interview. If the pay and benefits were right, there would be plenty of CPAs. As things stand now, I would encourage my child to be a software developer instead of a CPA because companies hiring developers are willing to pay for employees. CPA firms could take a lesson there." So pay more, and solve the talent shortage. Problem is that you can't force firms to pay more, right? The market determines what accountants are worth when it comes to their salaries. I mean, especially in private industry. So I think this goes back to what we were talking about with audit and financial statements and making them useful, is that, if investors aren't finding audit opinions useful, if audits are failing, if financial statement information isn't trustworthy, if it's not giving them what they need, they're not going to value it. And if they don't value it, then it's just viewed as a compliance activity. And so, of course, salaries will be as low as possible, because when you're fulfilling a strict compliance rule, that's what happens, right? It's just, what's the least I can pay to get my financial statements printed? What's the least I can pay to get somebody to audit those, right? It's a commodity that gets driven to
And there's a ripple effect, right? If Wall Street doesn't value accountants, why should Main Street value accountants?
Yeah. Well, but again, like that's where you want to be, right? If you want to be valued as an accountant, you're not going to get it, working in financial reporting at a big corporation that's just doing it because they got to do it because of the law. It's going to be working with small businesses to, help them grow, or working with, private companies to help them grow, like not doing the compliance, right? And I think that's what I see successful firms do is they do the compliance, but the value is not in the tax return. The value is in everything else that goes around getting the tax return done. And same thing with the bookkeeping, right? It's not about just putting together a trial balance to give to your tax preparer. There's all the other things that come into it, like I'm going to manage your payroll for you. I'm going to manage your bills for you. I'm going to help you with whatever comes up. I'll be your money guy. That's where the value's at. So
Just changing the world.
one listener at a time. I think things are starting to shift. I think people are starting to see audit for what it is, start to question it. I think when the messaging was controlled all from the top down, AICPA, NASBA, they repeated the big four talking points, and nobody ever heard any other point of view. And media, like podcasting, has completely changed this, right? You and I, David, nobodies can have a show and can have an opinion, and people will tune in and hear it. And we listen to our listeners who also, probably many of them have no voice in their state societies or boards because those are dominated by people in positions of power. And it's starting to change. And, the talent shortage is actually a good thing because it's forcing these folks who have not listened to actually listen to their members.
Did
Here's
you
another
say,
email.
I think on Twitter, before you go to the email, tying this back to what members are saying, was there a survey, or you published on Twitter, there was a survey at BDO Alliance or something?
Oh, yeah.
Something tweet out about the 150-hour rule?
I'm so glad you brought this up. I almost totally forgot. So one of our listeners messaged me and asked to stay anonymous and said that there was a poll at the BDO Alliance meeting in Las Vegas. I think it was the week before last, and gave me the results. So shall we look at the results here? I tweeted this out.
And can you just quickly explain? BDO Alliance is not, it's not BDO. It's firms that partner together and get support, tech support, software support from BDO. Is that kind of how the BDO Alliance works?
I actually don't know the answer to this question. I'm familiar in general with the concept of like these alliances, like smaller firms joining together under, like Aprio has one too. Like there's an Aprio, I don't know what it's called, Aprio Alliance. And like, so if you're a small firm, it's like being affiliated with Aprio or BDO, but without, actually being in the firm. So yeah, you get resources, right? That's my understanding of it anyway. Feel free to correct us, viewers, if we're totally off base here. So anyway, at the BDO Alliance conference, which, it's a lot of managing partners of these smaller firms getting together with BDO, they did a poll on the 150-hour CPA rule. And the results are this. Okay, keep as is, 30 managing partners voted for that. That is 20% of the total. So 20% said just keep the 150 as is. Should we modify it? 33%, 49 of the managing partners said, yes, we should modify it. So a third said modify. And remove entirely. This is the part that kind of blew my mind. These are managing partners, right? 46% want to remove it entirely. That's 68 of the voters. So if you add together the people who want to remove it entirely or modify it, that's 80% want it to change. 80% of managing partners of the BDO Alliance want to change the 150-hour rule, either by removing it entirely or by modifying it. Only 20% want to keep it the same.
There's some comments about this, though. If you see the comments we're getting.
Brian said that, yes, the BDO Alliance is smaller local and regional firms. And I guess, if you think about it, small firms, regional firms are feeling the pain of the talent crunch most acutely. So, and to them, the benefit of that, like, masters is limited. Go ahead, David.
Oh, Brian also said that he thinks it was an audit partners meeting because this didn't come in for tax partners.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So, audit partners.
Sarah's still 80%. It's a lot.
Yeah, Sarah says, my husband's firm is a BDO Alliance firm. Thanks for joining us, Sarah. Great to see you. David Hall says, most organizations typically do not value most support functions until crisis or collapse. Some accounting firms position themselves to meet the market for crisis services and have premium rates. Yes, going back to the discussion of, like, how do you create value? That's a great point. Crisis services, right? Charge for the urgent response. So I'm going to Italy, and I had the pleasure of purchasing medevac insurance. I've never experienced this before because, like, the last time I traveled, I was in my 20s, and I didn't think about that. You don't think about it when you're young and healthy. And, like, it's the coolest thing. You pay a few $100s, and if you get sick, if you're hospitalized and you can't travel home because you're in the hospital, they'll fly a jet to you that's, like, equipped like a hospital bed and everything. Like, it's like a medical jet, and fly you home from anywhere in the world. Now that's value, right? Like, for the amount I pay to have the peace of mind knowing I can just get home on, like, some private plane.
I would just stay in Italy for a lot longer. What are you doing? That doesn't seem like good use of money.
Recuperate in Italy. I'm not sure if the medical care is as advanced as it is here, though. I don't know. It would be a trade-off, perhaps.
You want to touch on a couple quick app news?
Yeah. What else you got?
So just really quick. Melio has now launched inside of Shopify. So Shopify has now built-in bill pay. That's powered by Melio. And then Melio also launched an iOS app this week as well.
I saw that.
If you want mobile Melio, that's available there. Gapify, who it's almost like setting up accounting automation as a service, right? They use proprietary tools to, if you want to automate your AP processes in-house through RPA, they can come help set all that up. They just raised $10 million. And the other one is, it's kind of interesting. If you go to translucent.io, this is the former Receipt Bank founder. He launched he's calling it the CFO Super App. And it looks like it does some sort of multi-entity reporting. It has some live sheets, BI analytics. It helps doing the close checklist. It also apparently is going to help pull together data that's, not all finished. I don't know how to better way to say that. So you have half a transaction over here, you have the receipt scan over here, maybe you have something else over here through a bank feed, and it's supposed to pull those together to clean up that data as well. But it's, like they said, a CFO super app.
So I always wonder about apps like this because just at first glance, it looks like they're trying to ingest all the data into a single data warehouse. And my problem with that has always been keeping it synced properly. Like OneSAS tried to do this back in the day, to be a one platform to manage all your data, and I always had sync errors. Like, never got it to work perfectly, and then the sync errors would just destroy my life. Ended up being one of my least favorite things I ever tried to do.
And at this time, it does look like it's a little heavy for either the UK or Down Under, because it's connecting to Exact, MYOB, Penny Lane, Sage. I mean, there's QuickBooks and Xero as well, but a lot of these other products tend to be, Down Under.
We'll have to keep an eye on it. So you said that's the founder of Receipt Bank?
Receipt Bank, yep.
That's awesome. I mean, if somebody can do it, right? Somebody with a track record like that might be able to. Anchor integrated with Zapier. Did you see that, David?
Oh, I saw it in the app, but I did not see news about that.
I got an email about it. So Anchor is a proposal software. Consider that in addition to Ignition, depending on your needs. And now they have Zapier integration. I think it's going to be really powerful. You could do a lot with it. And I think my favorite thing about it is it's $5 per payment flat. So if you're doing high value, ACH, then you don't get hammered on like percentage fees.
Yeah, it's set up for that subscription business model, right? Getting people to pay up front, pay you automatically, and taking your firm or your company. You don't have to be in the billing process. Other new, you spoke about insurance for your flights to Italy or your in case, but QuickBooks has discontinued their insurance. So in QuickBooks in 2020, they were going to announce plan to offer QuickBooks commercial customers, so business insurance, through a company they partnered with called Next Insurance, and they were going to offer that through QuickBooks Online Payroll. And apparently, the distribution models never worked, and so they're pulling the plug on that, and they're going to kill that product, the QuickBooks Insurance product.
Was that workers' comp insurance?
I don't think this was workers' comp. Oh, no, this was. No, it's not workers' comp. So the workers' comp product's been around for a very long time. And that led into, that's been working. Let's do other business insurance.
It's just business liability insurance.
And it just didn't seem to work. It just couldn't get the traffic or the traction in their ROI goals. So that's going away.
I got one more here on the tech news front. KPMG signed a deal with MindBridge for AI and audits. So MindBridge is a statistical machine learning and rules-based analytics engine for audit. They're going to incorporate it into KPMG's audit platform, Clara, and use it for all their audits? It's a big deal for MindBridge to get this deal. Of course, these announcements, you always have to take them with a grain of salt, because it might just be like KPMG has made it possible now for audit partners to use MindBridge. MindBridge then has to go and recruit every single audit partner to use MindBridge. So
or getting to actually use things. Yes, that anybody who's been on the software side of this business and has sold something to a big firm, and the big firm's like, yes, we're going to put that on 6,000 clients. 2 years later, they put it on 2 clients.
Yes,
it's great news headlines, though. It's a great article, but yeah, it's always tough.
I forget what we call that, but it's like the penetration into a firm of that size is usually the hardest thing. So this is just the beginning of their journey. We'll see what happens. Well, David, that's all my stories for this week, and we're coming up at the end of our time. Where can listeners follow you online? I will see you.
The next time I see you will be in Italy.
Yes.
Think about
They can't follow us there, unfortunately, but they can follow us online and get updates from Expensicon. So
#Expensicon, right?
Yeah, #Expensicon. So you're at David Leary. I am at Blake T. Oliver. Follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Those are our favorite spots to be. And subscribe to the Cloud Accounting Podcast on YouTube. Get notified when we go live. Join us. You can chat with us. It's always fun to see you. Thanks everyone who joined us for our live stream. I mean, ever since we started doing this, David, it's made it so much more fun to record. I love talking to you, of course. Yes. Don't get me wrong. But it's just so much fun to get the live input.
Well, I like how we can say something wrong and somebody's like, oh, no, this is what it is. And they clarify it for us. It's just,
it's great. I don't have to go fix that in post-production anymore, right? We can just do it live in the episode.
And then I think our plan is at ExpensiCon is we're going to try to shoot and record little videos every day and hopefully get those out the next day. Like we think we have a loose plan on this. So watch for that every day. You should see some Cloud Accounting Podcast videos going out there.
We're going to try every day, daily content. I'll see you in person in Italy, David.
A couple of days. And I'll get back to my other conference. Bye, everybody.
Bye.